Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the heart and soul of photography. I'm Ariel, Faith, your host.
All right. Welcome back. We are with Janioris again, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the heart of photography and visual expression. What makes something a heart photograph versus a head photograph in your perspective?
I like this question. I think that when I'm photographing anything else that I don't love photographing, it becomes a head photograph, right? So basically, if I'm doing, at this point, for example, I don't do weddings anymore. I have at some point in my photo career did weddings, like probably everybody who was a photographer has done every kind of photo genre, right? I don't enjoy doing weddings anymore. And I turn them down and I just don't take them, right? Because first of all, it would be a disservice to the clients because my heart is not in it, right?
Right.
So then it's just this stressful endeavor of making sure I get all of the photos that are important to the client. And of course, I'm trying my best and I'm giving my best, but it's never going to match what I'm able to give when I'm in my zone of genius, so to speak, in the area that I love and that I have connection with, etc. For me, it's especially, I'm also, even though I enjoy social interactions, I'm very measured with them because it drains a lot of my energy. I know you've met me in person. That might be hard to believe because I'm very enthusiastic and very outgoing in person. But I have my limit and I know my limit. It's very exhausting. It's very draining for me. I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. So
I do believe that.
Okay, good. Okay.
But, people are shocked by that because I will, do stuff exterior.
As a business owner, which we were talking about last time, there's different elements of you and it's consistent across the board, but there are different parts of you. And so for my business, for my clients, I am more energetic and I present a lot more, enthusiasm because it's important for them to be able to absorb that. But it's draining for me, right?
Yes. So you need a day off afterwards.
Yeah. 100%. So then when I used to do weddings, right, I would take a wedding and then you would have, I think they call it like a wedding hangover afterwards. Like photographers, they have like a hangover just from the work that it takes.
Yeah. That would be exhausting.
Yeah. 8 to 10 hours, 12 hours, depends on the wedding. And, so to me, anything like that I can do, but shouldn't do, for my heart's, for my sanity, is a head photograph.
Okay.
I can do it, but is it probably a good idea? No, because
you want to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's going to drain me. It may not be the best that a client can receive. It may be a technically good photograph, but the synergy between what I give and what they give is not going to be there. That click isn't there. And I think that every person should have that experience in front of the lens where they come alive and they're able to see themselves in a different energy. And if your photographer isn't giving that, it's really hard to give it. And I've been on both sides of the lens, right? I've been a client myself and I've been in a position where I haven't really been able to connect well with a photographer, even being a photographer myself, knowing exactly what they need from me in a photo, knowing, all the technical aspects. But when that connection isn't there, it's really hard to really give what you want to give in a photo and be authentic about it. So yeah, that's a head photo for me. And I try to stay away from those as much as possible. Obviously in business, I know that, especially if you're starting your business and you're listening to this, you're starting your business, there are certain things you can't turn it down always. Sometimes you need to take on a few head works, a few head shots, so to speak. But not intended head shots. But as quickly as possible, get into your heart photos,
wherever
as quickly as you can, find your way into heart photography and it will communicate immediately. It will click.
Yeah. It's interesting because, interviewing a bunch of different women, a lot of them have tried different things through their photography journey. They might've been doing food. They might've been doing photojournalism. Their career morphed, they changed and they landed where they are right now. And wherever that is, they loved whatever they were doing for a while, but then it just kind of became stagnant. So they moved somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. So I see that the whole every genre, the more you expand your what you have done or what you understand, right? The bigger your vision is, and the more, when you find that heart work, you have all those, you know how to get the sharp, HDR type, but you also know how to get that shallow depth of field, and you know how the light works. And so every genre that you learn helps you with the one, even if you haven't found it yet, that will really make your heart sing, so to speak.
Sure.
Right?
It's just like life, right? Just like life, any experience that you have gone through is not a waste if you take it to your next experience,
Right.
Any past job you've ever taken, even if it was a job you hated or a job that was very temporary or a job when you were just a teenager, anything from those experiences you can take into your next job and it will make you a better employee regardless. So I think, for photography is the same as with life. Whatever you take from your last thing has the power to improve your current thing.
Yeah, like sometimes I've taken classes that are things I really I don't even want to do it, but I knew that I would learn something through that experience that would help me with all the others, whatever that was. So
yeah, that's a very mature perspective to have. And I think it takes being very intentional and in tune with what you're learning to really understand, okay, I can reject certain things about this that don't apply to me, but there's got to be something in here that I can absorb value from. And it's up to each person to really be able to extract that.
Yeah, pull that out. Yeah, definitely. How do you use mystery in your work, or do you? Because I would think mystery would be an element that would be very, for me, it's almost provocative just in itself. So, and that might not be the right word, but I'm going to let you talk from here.
Yeah. No,
I'm digging a hole.
No, I get it. I get what you mean. Yeah, mystery is important. I think that especially in photography where you are almost insinuating certain things without, giving away the cow, the farm and everything, right? You've got to have some mystery about it and some ways that the mind of the viewer would be able to fill in the gaps, right? So yeah, mystery is definitely an important aspect. And I think that is achieved through that storytelling aspect we talked about. It's also through, in my case, through the outfits that women choose. So I really hold their hand in the whole aspect of choosing outfits. And I have a client closet, a studio wardrobe that they can also select from, of pieces that are outside of the norm of what you might consider or that you might wear on a day-to-day basis. They may not be something that you wear. It's not your average undergarments. And those things really help also to add to the mystery of it, because I think it opens women's mind to consider what might be sexy that isn't a traditionally sexy thing,
right?
Or that isn't traditionally, or that is not just outright sexy. I think that there are steps and layers to that sensuality leading up to that sexual experience in your real life intimacy. And so in photography, it does the same. I think that there's sort of like layers to that sexiness. And again, that's something that we discover together, the client and I, of how far she wants to go in that exploration of herself. And I think that that's part of the mystery of like how, and a lot of times when women come back to me, because a lot of my girls, they come back for another experience. So the first one kind of breaks the ice and then they're like, oh my gosh, I have to have another, right? So they will come back. I've had clients come several times to me. And every time we try something different, or maybe they're willing to expand a little bit more or willing to, offer a little bit more to the experience. And so, yeah, that mystery can come in layers. And it can be achieved through storytelling. It can be achieved through the garments that they choose to wear and what we're able to imply through certain garments, everywhere from any kind of, like even from blankets or the sheets. I tell them you can do everywhere from gown to the sheets, and all of it can be sexy. We just have to add the right level of storytelling and mystery and, and posing to make it feel like what you want it to feel. Because if the sexiness of a woman is in her essence and not in what she wears, it becomes my challenge as a photographer to bring out the mood from that, despite what she may be wearing. Right. But I think that, what she wears does help. And I do try to walk alongside my clients so that they choose garments that really flatter them and that work best for them on camera.
Very nice. What about interesting question that I've asked others, but was there ever a time or an experience that kind of stands out that was like a paradigm shift for you? Either a photograph that you looked at that just kind of changed the way you saw, or a woman who you really overcame a lot in the experience that really just helped you fully understand the value of the work you're doing?
I love this question. I think that the very first woman I photographed in a boudoir capacity let me know I was in the right direction and that I was doing something really meaningful and valuable. She walked out in a bodysuit, right? And we all know bodysuits. Girls, we love bodysuits. And a lot of women wear them as regular clothing, everyday clothing. So she had a very, normal bodysuit. There was some lace to it, but there was nothing really exceptionally revealing about it. And she started whispering to me and she said, I've never worn lingerie. I've never worn lingerie before. I always thought it was a sin. And I thought to myself, oh goodness, I'm in the right gap here. We have a major gap happening here. And like her, many women in my audience felt like they were doing something wrong all along. And even though this was supposed to be this beautiful element of intimacy that she was able to own and have power over and gift and offer as a gift, And I think that first woman really set the course for me to say, oh no, we are in the dark here. We've got to bring some women out of the dark and into the light and to realize what we could do here and what the value of this is. Because how is it that you are happily married woman in a healthy relationship, with a family, which means that you have been an intimate person for a while. And in your intimacy, you don't feel the safety to express yourself in something as simple as lingerie, right? Which is a very surface level aspect of intimacy. So that expressed to me how much more was missing from the conversation, from the effort in boudoir, or just in intimacy and relationships in general, especially for the conservative wife, that if something as shallow and superficial and completely irrelevant as what you're wearing was a big issue, then there was more to that. There was a lot more depth to this that had to be explored. So I think that first woman really set the course for the whole thing that I'm doing now. And so I'm grateful for her trust, even though I was brand new. And, that she was able to trust me, because that set the course for all the women that get to walk through this now.
Yeah, and it really is about trust. I mean, in the end, because I'm sure you've had women that were easier to open, some that were harder to get through to than others. And then I'm sure you've had experiences where somebody was way more open and other people that are like, but they're doing it anyway, even though that they're like, they're totally fearful. But
I think it's a challenge for me as a photographer to be able to navigate women at different levels and to bring them that comfort, that trust that they need to walk through the experience successfully, right? And not just walk through it like, I did it, but I don't know what just happened, right? Right.
So the first half an hour is tough, but then they relax,
Yeah. And sometimes
good stuff happens.
Right. Sometimes it takes that and just being patient for me as a photographer, because ultimately it's not about me, my portfolio, or my photos. And I think that it's a blessing in disguise that I don't share my photos that often, because it means the pressure is not for me to have a great photo. I'm really, really client focused and really, really trying to serve this woman to make sure that the experience she's having is really doing the service of the whole point of why we're doing it. So yeah, there are different levels. Like I said, especially when a woman comes back to me, then of course there's a little bit more trust, a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more, ease. And yeah, certain women have navigated different experiences, some of which they share and some which they don't share, which is fine too. And so having that knowledge that a woman might have experienced something that makes her less open, and just knowing that without even knowing the experience that it might have been, is important and a valuable thing to know as a photographer, especially in this genre, that women have different reasons for why they are the way they are. Well, people really in general have their reasons for why they are the way they are. But in an experience like this, they may want to do it really in their mind because they know it's going to be a breakthrough for them. But in the moment, we are breaking through. So it is hard work.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's different levels of openness, and we just flex with that. I'm obviously trying to facilitate that breakthrough for a woman. So I am gently pushing on her a little bit to explore further. But I'm also obviously very cautious of how far she wants to go. And that's as far as we go, And you mentioned there's a psychology aspect to this. My degree is actually in psychology. So it's funny that you say that. And so I do know that there, like we said, this is a mind thing first. And so if we can't connect in the mind and we can't just, let our guard down, then the photos might be beautiful, but you're never going to see it. It's not going to come through. It's not going to make an impact. It's not going to matter anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Before we wrap up this, I just want to bring up one thing that is a tad bit controversial, but not really. So that was my disclaimer. But I would imagine, and we had talked about this personally with each other a while back, but I would imagine as a survivor of sexual abuse, I would imagine that sometimes you might get some very deep, ugly stuff that comes up through these sessions, I would think. Mm. And obviously that's a huge piece that a person has to heal. Mm-hmm. And a lot has to do with body image and, value and being perceived as an object and some of those kind of things. So how have you navigated through some of those, I'm going to call them shark-infested waters? Because, I could imagine somebody having a flashback in the middle of one of your sessions. In my mind, based on the people I've known through the years. But I also could see that it would be very therapeutic, especially if it's about her beauty, not her eroticness, right? That distinction to me is very important to feel empowered at the end of the day rather than used.
Yes.
Did that make any sense?
Sure. Absolutely. I think that, first of all, I have a lot of compassion and empathy for women who have had to endure experiences that they should have never had to walk through, that they should have never had to face and deal with, and that we understand how these experiences relay into so many different parts of your life for years to come. And that it is a journey that you have to navigate. Similar to grief, how it comes in these wafts where sometimes you're good and all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, whoa, that hurt all over again in the same way.
It's another layer that you pull off. And you're
right. And yeah. And it's painful and it's hard. And I do not take anything away from that. Understanding how sensitive and profound and difficult these experiences have been for women who have endured them. And so my heart absolutely breaks and shatters for women who have had to walk through this and have this kind of healing afterwards that takes a long time, With that being said, I think that having an experience like this, or any other experience that you choose to walk through that might aid in your healing, because it could look like many different things.
Right.
Is a matter of reframing the experience you had in light of new knowledge and new power, So for a woman that is walking through some of the trauma that was experienced in a similar capacity to what we bring to the studio or what we have in the studio, I think that it's a matter of reframing and making sure that she knows she's in control of the situation. So as a photographer, I'm there to aid in her navigating and walking through that experience, not to control or direct it.
Or push too far.
Right. So I think that there is a woman that comes in and needs to be directed. There's another woman that I need to flow with a little bit differently. And maybe I'm more cautious not to direct as much. Something as simple as, which I do with all of my clients, regardless of what I know about their backstory or their context. If I'm coming even to remove a strand of hair, if I'm getting closer to you for any reason, I'm always asking, I'm always aware that there is acknowledgement and that there is that there's consent before I'm even moving your hair out of your face.
Right.
I need a woman to know that that personal space is fully respected, and that I'm not coming in and invading any part of that personal space, even for a photo. So something even as technical as, hey, can I move? You have a strand of hair on your face. Can I come to you and remove it? I'm getting closer. Or, for example, a lot of our images, their eyes are closed, right?
Right.
And so it's important to me that she knows what's happening while her eyes are closed. So I'm narrating and I'm saying, okay, you're doing great. Keep your eyes closed. I'm moving to your right and I'm taking another photo above you, for example, right? Or your eyes are still closed. I'm backing up so I can have a photo of the whole, whatever. I'm narrating. I need her to know that she's still in control and that nothing is happening outside of her awareness of the space. You know, you're doing great. Keep your eyes closed. You're going to feel I'm closer. I'm getting a close up of your lips, something like that. So those things, those are details that are so important in these vulnerable spaces, regardless of what you know in the context of what these women have endured. I think that in order to create a space that is full of power and reframing of these experiences, you need to create an environment where a woman feels in control and is able to dictate how far she wants to go, what is in her comfort level, what she's wearing, what she's not wearing. For example, it's like at the doctor's office, right? You go to a gynecologist and she's going to see everything, but still she's not there when you change your clothes.
Right.
Like, you know, but she's going to, it seems odd, right? Like, why? Well, you don't have to go. You're going to see it anyway, right?
but that's in a different context.
Right. You see what I'm saying? So
yes.
Even things like that, like, yes, you're coming out in lingerie, but she's not changing in the room with me, for example.
Right.
You know, like you go into that room. If you need help with anything in your wardrobe, I'm here. I'm behind the door. And then even if she calls me, I knock on the door first. Is it okay to come in? These are little elements that you are giving power back to a woman in the context of this intimate space and this intimate experience. And it reframes for her, this is how it should feel. This is how it should feel for you to be intimate with somebody.
And respected.
Right. This is what it feels like for you to be vulnerable, but respected.
Yep.
Right. And so what we're doing is actually creating overlapping experiences to those other traumatic ones that in some ways heal those elements of how she was first treated, or, you know, that this is what it should actually feel like. This is what it would feel like if you had your power back. And I think that does a lot for a woman to walk through some of this. Plus, a lot of what we're doing is so technical that it seems like it would be really triggering, maybe. And I can't speak on behalf of every woman, but it's such a different context in some ways, you know, that some of the girls, they'll say, I forgot I was wearing lingerie. I'm just focused on this pose, or I'm jamming to this music. And sometimes that's what it takes too, of creating spaces. This is a similar thing, but it feels so different. And in some ways, we're hoping that these positive experiences trump some of those awful experiences, and that it serves to provide some healing.
Yeah, healing is good, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing this with us, because I do believe this is a misunderstood genre. And I believe that the respect I have for you as an artist is very high. And I think what your messaging, the work you do, some of the lectures that you offer, some of the one-on-one coaching, I think it's very important. And it's a very good thing you're doing for other women. So I want to just say that. So I'm saying thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that, for your words. And thank you for allowing this space, this platform for us to discuss these things, from the technical to the emotional and all of the in-between. I appreciate this space, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for yours very, very much. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, The Creative Warriors, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.